The following episode can be viewed on the YouTube channel Bernie or Bust Television. Stay tuned for Loose Ends Part 3. This article goes along well with the Bernie or Bust episode I did this morning, episode number 185, where we were talking about the war in Iran. The U.S. government lies constantly, and the burden of proof is on the accuser by Caitlin Johnstone. Over the last 48 hours, I've been splitting my free time between A, learning as much as I possibly can about the U.S. assassination of top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, and B, arguing with people online who are uncritically swallowing U.S. government claims about why that assassination was necessary. I always engage such political debates because they're a valuable source of information on what propaganda narratives people are buying into, and therefore which propaganda narratives need to be addressed. What has been made abundantly clear from this particular engagement is that those who have bought into the Trump administration's completely unsubstantiated claims about Soleimani are sincerely unaware that they have unquestioningly bought into unsubstantiated U.S. government narratives. People tend to get their information from tightly insulated echo chambers, and if you inhabit an echo chamber that supports the current president, all you'll get is a bunch of officials, pundits, and reporters saying in a confident-sounding tone of voice that Soleimani needed to be taken out. Since they're surrounded by chatter affirming that Soleimani had attacked America and or posed an imminent threat in the near future, they assume that chatter must be based on some actual facts and evidence. It is not. Don Mall. This is very telling. I have read every single reply. Not one produced even the slightest shred of indication that he posed an imminent threat to the U.S. Seriously, Stalin himself would have been proud of such a display of blind, unflinching acceptance of the deep state narrative. That was on Twitter at Dan V. Mall, M-A-U-L. Caitlin Johnstone, that was in response to Caitlin Johnstone at CAITOZ on Twitter. And Kate said, "Show me your very best evidence that Soleimani posed an imminent threat to Americans and needed to be taken out immediately. Bonus points if you can explain how the evidence you provide rises to the level of proof required in a post-Iraq invasion world." When I speak out online against Trump's active war on Iran and interact one-on-one with those who object to what I'm saying, the disparity between what they think they know and what they actually know gets very quickly highlighted. Simply by my challenging people to prove the claims that they are making about Soleimani planning to attack Americans, attacking a U.S. embassy, directing a strike that allegedly killed a mysteriously unnamed U.S. contractor in Iraq, killing hundreds of U.S. soldiers in Iraq, that he's a terrorist, etc., they quickly realize that they have literally no evidence for their claims beyond the unsubstantiated assertions of U.S. government officials and people who unquestioningly repeated those assertions. And from there, I just ask them, how well has uncritically swallowing U.S. government narratives about the need for military action worked out for you in the past? Nobody wants to admit that they are doing such a thing, least of all a Trump supporter who's poured plenty of mental energy into distancing this administration from the previous Republican occupant of the White House. But that is indeed exactly what they are doing, uncritically swallowing baseless claims by U.S. government officials about the need to advance a pre-existing military agenda in a way that is indistinguishable from the cult-like behavior of Bush supporters in the lead-up to the Iraq invasion. Donald J. Trump, at Real Donald Trump, January 4th. Hundreds of Iranian protesters. He was already attacking our embassy and preparing for additional hits in other locations. Iran has been nothing but problems for many years. Let this serve as a warning that if Iran strikes any Americans or American assets, we have ... targeted 52 Iranian sites representing the 52 American hostages taken by Iran many years ago, some at a very high level and important to Iran and the Iranian culture, and those targets and Iran itself will be hit very fast and very hard. The USA wants no more threats. Woo! In reality, there's no evidence for any of the reasons we've been offered for why Iran needed to be provoked into an almost inevitable retaliation that Trump is currently tweeting will result in all-out war. Bullet point: the claim that Soleimani posed an imminent threat is completely without evidence, rumored to be razor thin and entirely debunked in this excellent essay by Craig Murray. Next bullet point: Mike Pence's claim that Soleimani assisted 911 terrorists is so ridiculous that even the war-loving Washington Post dismissed it. Washington Post, incidentally, is run by a war contractor. Next bullet point: there's no proof that Soleimani directed the strike that allegedly killed a U.S. contractor or that the contractor even existed. Next bullet point: there's no proof that Soleimani was involved in any attack on any U.S. embassy, leaving aside the obvious fact that the little graffiti on the walls wouldn't justify his assassination if he did. Next point: the hundreds of American deaths line you hear regurgitated by everyone from Trump to Elizabeth Warren actually refers to Iraqis defending themselves from an illegal U.S. invasion with some training from Iran. The claim that Iran was behind Iraqi bombs is without evidence and wouldn't matter if it were true. Claiming the inhabitants of an invaded nation don't have the right to defend themselves is absurd, regardless of where they got their weaponry. Last point: the claim that Soleimani was a terrorist is only made because the branch of the Iranian military he commanded was arbitrarily designated a terrorist organization by the U.S. government last year, a designation that any foreign government could just as easily make for any branch of the U.S. military. He was actually a fearsome enemy of ISIS and al-Qaeda and played a massive role in halting the spread of ISIS. We are being lied to yet again about yet another war on yet another geostrategically crucial Middle Eastern nation, and a huge percentage of the population is marching right along with it. When Iran retaliates for Soleimani's assassination, these propagandized sheep will be herded by the political media class into believing that the attack was completely unprovoked. And if their credulity thus far is any indication, they'll swallow the whole load without so much as a twinge of a gag reflex. I went to this Debunking a Century of War Lies and watched it. It's very good. Everyone should go to this and watch it. It's the Corbett Report, Debunking a Century of War Lies. And Caitlin links to that in her article that I'm reading. The U.S. government has a very extensively documented history of lying to advance pre-existing military agendas. This is an entirely indisputable fact. It's been universally true from generation to generation, from administration to administration, and from political party to political party. The Afghanistan Papers came out just a few weeks ago, further documenting this already conclusively established fact. Anyone who just accepts U.S. government assertions about the need for military force without a mountain of independently verifiable proof is, to put it nicely, a complete fucking idiot. The demand for proof would be normal even if the entity in question didn't have an extensive history of lying about these things, because anyone with even a cursory understanding of logic already knows the burden of proof is always on the party making the claim. When it comes to incalculably important matters like life and death, demanding that the burden of proof be met is just being a sensible human being. Add in the fact that the U.S. government is known to lie constantly about these matters, and believing its current claims about Soleimani makes as much sense as believing a known compulsive liar who has deceived you many times when he tells you it's urgent that you go murder your neighbor right this instant. Debating the current Iran situation then is simply a matter of holding the unassailable positions that A, the U.S. government lies constantly, and B, the burden of proof is on the party making the claim. In a post-Iraq invasion world, the level of proof required is very, very high, and the Trump administration has taken no steps whatsoever to even providing anything that could qualify as evidence. People will often try to get around this unassailable argument by contending, well, where is your proof that they're lying? This is called shifting the burden of proof, and it is a logical fallacy. Illegal proof reversal. Tweet! Attempt to shift burden of proof onto the doubter. I lay this all out not because I expect the U.S. government to suddenly begin conducting itself rationally or providing proof of its claims that rises to the level required in a post-Iraq invasion world, but because streamlining our thinking in this way helps to avoid confusion in a landscape that is saturated with propaganda and its mindless regurgitators. The only sane response to U.S. government claims about the need for military force is intense skepticism. If U.S. government officials begin telling us that something happened necessitating military intervention, your default assumption should always be that they are lying. And you should hold that position until the highly unlikely and historically unprecedented event that conclusive, independently verifiable proof of their claims is provided. No changes were made after the Iraq invasion to keep the U.S. government from ever again deceiving Americans into war. No new laws were made, no policies changed, no war crimes tribunals were held, no one was even fired. This is because they had every intention of doing it again. And now here's the U.S. government again spouting lies about why it was necessary to initiate war with another Middle Eastern nation, and people are swallowing it hook, line, and sinker. The more skepticism we can encourage toward current deceptions about Iran, the easier it will be to encourage skepticism about the next wave of escalations, which, make no mistake, are absolutely on their way. Spread the word. The preceding episode can be viewed on the YouTube channel Bernie or Bust Television.